morning there. You're watching QTV this morning, and I'm Jenna Basonko. I'm here with my co-host Ibrahim Abalde, as well as our guest throughout the week, Mr. Carr. Thank you so much for joining us. Ibrahim, good morning.
Yes,
it's the end of week almost.
Good morning, Jenaba. It's good to be here. It's Thursday, and it's almost the end of the week, and it's the end of the week for us.
It's always refreshing when the week is ending. Why is that?
Our weekend starts today.
It starts today, right?
So it's good to be here, and I know by the end of the program, we will have a very fruitful discussion. And we have our newspaper review guest here, Mr.
Mr. Carr. So, Mr. Carr, do you usually feel the same way when the week is ending? You know, that vibe that you're getting into the weekend?
Yeah, I think that is psychological, more or less, for most of us. I know we even come here on Saturdays to work, but nonetheless, it's that type of feeling when you feel that it's coming to a lull period when you have to rest on a Sunday, you don't have to worry about
the whole day.
That's just the mindset and the body expecting to do that. And also going out, meeting friends, maybe having food, you know, just socializing.
Okay. Do you do that?
Absolutely. I have friends, you know. I do go out with my friends. I hang with them,
Key mom always smoke a laje. Muna magino mamangi talks to
no, man do suma problem buba. Most of the time, man munna neka kir from Friday, suma wache ligay. Friday, man neka for Saturday, Sunday, be Monday, la nyo ligay.
Family man.
Wow, so man gena, it's not my problem.
Yeah, I love that.
Wow. You know, so that is what it is.
Are you sure? But I'll investigate.
No, time to time, like come see goodie. Saturday is goodie. I can take madam out. And they
as long as you're with madam, I'm okay.
Then they muna gain and you them maybe somewhere you hang. Wow.
That's good. That's a very good culture.
Wow. Yeah. Apart from that, mangi inside.
Mangi inside. I love that. So let's head right on to the proverb.
Yes, it reads, I mean, if you spoil your name at home, go live elsewhere. It's from Zaire. I think it's Zaire. It's the capital city of
Zaire.
The former Zaire. It used to be
Congo.
Yeah, it used to be Congo's capital.
We have Congo Kinshasa.
Zaire in the former Zaire. I can remember during
is now DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo.
It reminds me of something.
Yeah, that's where Mobutu used to be, and now we have the Kabilas. Then after Kabila, we have. So that's DRC.
Yeah, when I was in Zaire, I was like, I mean, I came across this thing somewhere.
Okay.
When I was defining inflation, you know, chasing too much. How inflation is chasing, I don't know, too much goods with few. I don't know how.
Economics. I did economics in school.
Inflation.
The way it sounds.
Inflation.
Having too much money, chasing few
all
goods.
Things,
you understand?
Honestly, you were a teacher, okay? And then the fact that they made us cram all of these things, and at the end of the day, it's not your path. You don't even remember them.
Well, I think since I mean...
But you use it in life, the knowledge that is compacted in you, you're always using it. Somehow. You trust me, you know, every time you understand issues, you can be in a conversation, you can contextualize things, you know. It gives you that broad perspective of life.
Agree.
And also when you are young and developing, you don't know what you're going to be.
Yeah, you have
you
to
don't know. So you have to, you know, have general knowledge.
That's true.
And that is very good. General knowledge is something that informs you.
Exactly.
Right,
I think it's important. So when I saw this, I was like, I mean, inflation, having too much money, chasing few goods. Example, the former Zaire, you have to get a bag of money before you buy a pair of shoes. You know, but I mean, like Mr. Carr said, I mean, I think learning, it's very significant. I mean, to go, to come across certain things and know what they mean. You know, that's why most of the time, if I'm sitting with my kids watching television, if they mention a particular thing on TV, they will ask, Baba, what do you mean by this? So I will try to explain, you know, define it.
Look, you study geography, you know about rock formation. You study biology, you know about plants. You know about rain, you know about those things. Most of them, it's not your field. I mean, you can say it's your field. As journalists, you have to be broad and understand a lot of things. So you are applying all these things in life sometimes.
Naturally, I agree. That is why bachelor's degree, then it has to be general, and then later you get to be specific with what you want.
Knowledge is always useful.
It is useful. It was just tiring as kids.
I understand.
So moving on, what do you make of the proverb? You know, if you spoil your name at home, go live elsewhere.
I think, like we just discussed about it earlier, and we said that in this day and age it's very difficult, but in Ancient times, maybe when you have done something in the community, they used to banish you. Like they will expel you from the society because you have committed something heinous, a crime or something, and you cannot live in the community any longer. I think this is the context of that, that when something happens that you have committed against a crime against, now we say humanity, or a crime against your people, your community, your village, you cannot any longer live in that community because you are judged, you are being looked at. You also feel, you know, you cannot fit any longer. So it's best you migrate. But in this day and age, like we talked about, it's very difficult.
It's very difficult. With the coming of social media, we were talking about how when something happens, before you even know, it's already out on social media. People are sharing it. You know, where you're going to go.
No hiding.
No hiding.
You go to
people
Australia,
now,
you still
see it. So that is why now it's really difficult. Mental Health Day is actually coming up on the 10th. So I think it's actually even a time for people to raise awareness about mental health issues.
Absolutely.
Educate people about how a single post on social media can make somebody depressed. You know, people need to be aware of some of these things. It's really hard. You know, suicidal rates are going up. Today you hear somebody died, and then later you investigate. It might be even a minor thing, but the person didn't have the chance to interact with somebody to tell them.
I think you made a point there.
Yes.
I mean, you know, there are people that are going through a lot. You know, here, each and every person you see, whether you know it or not, there's an element you know, that they are struggling with. So it's just a matter of how society accept that person and help the person. You understand? So there are situations that happen to a person, and you know, sometimes it's just a victim of circumstance. You know, so it's a matter of you know, seeing how best to collaborate to help the person. But it's difficult to come and tell people what you're feeling inside, because at the end of the time you become a laughing matter outside. So which is very serious. That's why most of the time people keep certain things to themselves. But I think you should be able to come, you know, have the confidence.
Like you said, it's difficult because sometimes you know, talk about certain things and you're not sure if a solution is going to come. You know, most of the time, that is why. And also the upbringing in homes, you are made to believe that, oh, you're supposed to be quiet. When something happens, you're supposed to be quiet. You're not supposed to be loud about things. So the moment you make somebody, especially a girl child, most of the time in our cultural setting, believe things like that, then they stay quiet. That is why when people are raped, they can't speak up about it because they're scared of what other people might think. So I think, you know, the upbringing in homes as well really matter in relation to changing that. Also, you know, people now are beginning to also protect their mental health, because I've seen a lot of people talk about the fact that now they're turning off notifications on Facebook, on X, and other platforms as to things they do not want to see. So the fact that, you know, you are as aware as controlling what you see on social media, Mr. Ka, I think that is also a good step coming from people.
Yeah, social media is a very difficult space.
Yes.
It's not easy to handle. And that is why governments all over the world, they battle with it. How to control it is almost impossible. Because it's a new phenomenon that's arises. It's a platform that is universal, easily accessible. So that is why it's important not to damage people's character by posting. We are all human.
Exactly.
And we err, we can make mistakes. So once you're passing judgment, maybe your day will come. So it's always good to be mindful, like you said, of people's mental state, how they're going to feel. As you said, alluded earlier on, that it can impact on the rise and increase of suicides and all these things. So these are all things that we must have to educate and enlighten each other about, so that we can become more responsible, understanding the feelings of other people on the other side that are the recipient or the culprits for that matter. So these are things that we must factor in this day and age, and be careful before you put anything or you share anything about people. Just be sure that it's something that, you know, you have assessed and analyzed as to the impact.
And what I always say is, when you're sharing it, put yourself there. If you were in that position, you know, how will you want to be treated or exposed? I think the moment we equate ourselves in these instances, then there will be less of these incidences.
That is why the proverb is poignant in the sense, and especially now, like we said, no hiding place. Even if you are in Australia, he's committed something in Gambia, you wake up, you see it on all social media platforms, and the platforms are increasing. Today you will have Snapchat, tomorrow TikTok, the after, you know, so many of them that you cannot control them, so it's happening. So that is why, you know, just, you know, try. You cannot be perfect. You cannot have a perfect human being, but try the best you can to be, you know, somebody that is, you know, considerate about other people.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
So we can go for a short break now, and when we come back, we will take a look at current affairs. Stay with us.
With QCell's 5G network, experience speeds like never before with our new 5G Rocket Fix Internet plan. Get speeds from 10 Mbps to 100 Mbps. Your 5G-enabled devices. Walk into QCell headquarters to get one of our 5G routers and experience the true feeling of 5G. Only with QCell. QCell brings you the future. Tech, innovation, incredible speed. The future is now. For more information, call our customer care on 111. QCell, Sunyapus. We innovate, others follow. Terms and conditions.
Welcome back from that break. If you're just tuning in, you're watching QTV this morning. So, gentlemen, moving on, let's talk about the grade 9 results. You know, the Gabese results, they're out. And then we've seen that 41 students back aggregate 6 altogether in the 2023 Gabese. And then, you know, we saw how difficult it was to accept the grade 12 results because they were really looking good. And then we had a lot of people, hell on the news. We interviewed a lot of educationists who actually, you know, talked about how we can move forward when it comes to the poor, you know, sector, which is, you know, just beyond the ministry. I just feel like there are a lot of things involved in this. Most of the time we point at the ministry, but, you know, times are changing. Parents at home too, they have a role to play. We talked about social media. Do you monitor to say, oh, you're going to use your phone only during weekends, during the week, this is your routine, you know? So I think that it's a collective responsibility. The ministry has to come in, parents, the child, the children themselves, and all that's just how I see it.
Yeah, it's good to highlight the percentages, but for me, what is most important is to look at the other aspects in terms of gender, in terms of rural performance, in terms of there are other headlines, so to speak, that ought to be looked at in terms of the data to establish that the performance, because you have to look at social status as well. Performances, is it concentrated in the urban area and peri-urban area? What is the performance of the rural students and all these things? So if you have a broad outlook of this, then you can be able to tell that, you know, definitely there is a lot of positivity coming out of the performances. But if it is still concentrated in a certain group, a certain area, then there is a lot of work that is required to take along on board the other parts of the country. I think
but most of the time, you know, teachers don't want to be posted most of the time. You know, they don't want to go up country. You talked about it yesterday, it was existing since your time.
Absolutely.
And that's the same case still. You know, most of the good teachers want to stay in the urban areas because they feel like the amenities are not there. What are the incentives?
They have to incentivize.
That's the issue.
One, like me, when I first started teaching, I started at Kafuta Primary School. Then I told you I went to Kosema, then I went to Pasamas. So I never thought here, except for when I went to the private sector. That is when I left the government. Before I traveled, I went to work with the 7-day Adventists. I taught there. But before that, you know, I just liked going to the rural areas. And it was very interesting because I learned a lot about the Gambia then. But these young teachers, that is what they ought to do. They have to know their country first before they migrate. Otherwise, most of them will know Europe, no other places, and don't even know beyond Brikama.
But it also has to do with, Mr. Ka, the state of the economy. Because, I mean, if you have a family in the urban area, you're posted there. How much are you getting paid? What benefits are you getting to actually leave someone?
Facilities are way better today than when I was teaching.
I agree. I agree.
It was not just me. It was a group of friends that agreed. Myself, Seh became the HR manager of, I think, Trust Bank. You know, Sehuba is the principal of I don't know, these Sehmas.
Yeah.
So some of them, these are people that went later on in life to make it. But they were first exposed to these rural conditions to appreciate and integrate within the rural community. These people can still do it if we did it then, when it was much more remote. If it used to take me 2 days to get to Fatoto from Basse, because I would wait for transport. There is no transport linking between Basse and Fatoto. So this is the conditions that I used to enjoy to go and teach at the time. So I don't think the excuses are there.
Well,
I'm not saying they are not challenges.
Yeah, because they have their own. Yes, exactly. That's
I mean,
the point.
I think it is important for them to go and experience out there. Absolutely. I mean, it will give them a lot of experience, and at the same time, they will know how things are transpiring at that area, you know. But we all have a role to play to make our teachers stay. Although it is now easier, Mr. Ka, because you have easy access at the same time. Other villages you go, you have electricity, you know. But still, I think a lot should be done, I mean, to make these young teachers stay. Because I can remember when there was a sit-down strike a few years ago, some of them were even sending pictures of where they're living. If you look at the conditions, you living your good house in the Combos and sitting the provinces in that kind of a condition, it's also can also prompt for them not to go and, you know, accept the outposting. So I think a lot should be done.
It's not just even teachers, nurses, you know, nurses, and just doctors as well. You know, nobody wants to go around those areas, you know.
But interestingly, Janaba, if you are, because when I graduated from high school, I was sent to Basse. You know, I spent 5 years.
From Basse?
Exactly.
Yes,
so
yes,
it's just like sending me to North Bank.
To my home. But it's like...
But I will not survive.
When I moved from Basse to do my schooling in Banjul, I spent my whole time here, my school days here. Then after school, they sent me back to Basse. But I was more, I mean, connected to the greater Banjul area then. So when they sent me to Basse, you know, I was like, okay, fine, it's my home. But I hope I would be able to connect very soon. But surprisingly, in fact, I enjoyed it there better than here.
Yeah,
you know?
because you love it there.
You will be surprised sometimes. The rural setting is challenging, but you also develop. You learn a lot. It prepares you for a lot more things. It prepares you to be very humble, to be adaptive, you know. So, and that type of adjustment, mentally or otherwise, is very good for every human being, especially a youth that is developing. If you don't appreciate these things and understand the conditions of other people, when you assume positions of responsibilities, then you will not be able to empathize so that you impact the lives of the people. So this is just a journey, it's a phase. It doesn't deprive you anything. Like I said, most of my colleagues, they went on to do things in life. It did not deprive them because they went to the rural area to do a sojourn of 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, it's just like the Peace Corps, Peace Corps volunteers who come all the way from America and then, you know, go to rural areas to settle there. They use the toilets that the rural people use, eat the same thing, you know, learn their languages. So it's like you said, it's very important to actually go far, get to learn, change your mindset a little bit. I really agree with that.
Let's encourage people. Teaching is good. It's a very noble thing. If you're looking for money, I understand it's difficult, but, you know, just try it at the early stage of your life and then impact the lives of young people and change it. That is something immeasurable. You cannot, you know, even know how the feeling is when you go and see a student or a former pupil of yours doing very well. That pride is,
it's just,
you cannot measure it.
I agree with that. Yes, so part of the program today is to contact Alhaji A.F. Jallo, who is our regional correspondent for Upper River region, as an unidentified person suspected of committing suicide was found dead at the Basse Main Cemetery in URR. So we'll be calling him just so he give us all the information in relation to this. But meanwhile, before we connect to him, we can just move on to something else while we try to reach him for this particular topic. Let's take a look at agriculture a little bit, because there's this partnership with the African Development Bank in relation to boosting rice production in the Gambia. You know, we're talking about food self-sufficiency.
Yeah, food self-sufficiency and sovereignty is important to every nation. And it appears the government have really recognized that. And if you see, there are a lot of projects, especially when it comes to rice cultivation, that is in the pipeline.
Right.
I know these things take time to fruition. It's not something that happens overnight.
Right.
But the fact that they are putting in a framework and a program structured, we are hoping and expecting that down the road, few
it will
years.
Work. So, Mr. Ka, we already have Alaji F. Jala on the line. So I'll just interrupt you there and we'll get back to that shortly. Alaji, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Janaba. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So we are aware that there's an unidentified dead body found at the Bassemen Cemetery, and this is a suspect of a suicidal incident there.
Hopefully.
So can you just update us in relation to it? At the time that you were doing the story, it's suspected suicide. Is that still, the case as we speak?
All right, thank you very much, Geneva. Exactly as you you stated, you are very right. Yesterday, this event occurred yesterday, discovered yesterday. In fact, briefly, when I was coming from my Arabic exercise, but in the evening, I am very fond of going for Arabics. So, and it rained heavily yesterday in Basse. So during that rain, I was alerted by a girl who was running from this cemetery, to tell me that something is at the cemetery. So fortunately, when I went, I found a few paramilitary officers there, and when I asked, they said a suspected suicide happened at the Basse main cemetery. So I went straight to the cemetery to check myself. When I found this body hanged on a big tree tied with a red rope.
Yeah, so yes, I will just interrupt you there just to apologize for that image that we have on the screen. So probably we'll just continue with the interview, but we apologize for that because we did not give them a warning. I should have given a warning first before we show that. So yes, we apologize for that. So continue.
Yes, absolutely. As you have just seen on the screen, in fact, that shot was taken by me. I was the only person at that time at the cemetery with a mobile phone. So that was when I took this very shot to be able to put together for the news. So, like I said, the eyewitness there, when I spoke to the eyewitness, said, she was engulfed with this heavy smell while she was passing through the cemetery. And after observing, she realized that somebody unidentified person hanged himself. So at that very moment, the rain came, so we could not stay there for long. But after the rain, I alerted the police and then the fire service when they all rushed to the scene. So I was there myself with my cameraman to take some of the live pictures of what is happening. So, but what happened exactly is it's a surprise to the people of Basse because such things is very rare in Basse. So, according to what we have observed, this suicide happened almost days ago. We can say over 4 or 5 days because the body has completely decomposed. The person is completely unidentified. So the place was completely smelling. So, but when the public health officers were alerted, also to our surprise, the public health officers also came ill-prepared because they were not wearing their PPEs. All that we saw is they came with 2 bottles of detergents to pour on this body, whilst the body was still hanging on the big tree, and eventually the smell gradually subsides. So that was when the police came, to take some identification. Like he's wearing a shirt. If you look at the footage, the shirt he's wearing and also a trouser hanged. The man is very hefty. He's a very strong man. I believe he must be at his 50s, right? So that is the situation that has happened in Basse, and the person is yet to be identified. But the public health officer that I spoke to during the interview, he said the body cannot be moved because the body has completely decomposed. So therefore, they are recommending for immediate burial. So when the police took some certain samples of the body, so that for future identification, and that was when the rain started again. So we all had to disperse and wait. But I believe that by now the body has already been buried.
Mental health.
Yeah, we were talking about mental health just recently, and again, we will apologize for showing you the pictures from the scene, which we did not warn you before we showed you. We deeply apologize for that because it can be really traumatizing. But Alaji, before you came on, we were just talking about mental health and suicide. You know, we cannot tell, like you said, investigation is ongoing. We cannot finalize if this person really committed suicide or something else happened. But obviously, in instances like that, you know, you can always say it is suicide based on, you know, hanging yourself or something else. But I think around Basse, do you normally have engagements, you know, mental health related matters? You know, I'm sure you'll be aware if there's any as a journalist.
Yeah, of course. In fact, there were two things that we thought of, especially when I went to the scene, because looking at the incident itself, the disease where he hung himself, because his legs are already on the ground and the rope is long enough. So the first thing that came into my mind, either the person was hung there, because if it is a suicidal case, there should be that elevation where the person would just release him or herself and eventually will fall. Okay, but also another thing came to my mind. It could be possible that it could be the person could be suffering from mental depression, because we have a lot of them around here. Some of them can be going, but when they are mentally disabled completely. So these are two things that it could be possible. The person that commits suicide will be mentally not functioning, because there are a host of issues, lots of issues, social issues, you know, the societal issues that are happening within society. That if care is not taken, many people, because we were seeing a lot of mentally disabled people in the streets as of now. So, but as of now, we cannot establish whether if the person is mentally that is a mental disorder, the person was killed. But the police is going to establish that as the investigation is ongoing.
Yeah, so we'll just allow investigations to go on and then not jump into conclusion. But thank you so much, Alaji A.F. Jallow, for the work that you do, because obviously as a journalist, that's why, you know, that girl had to come to you to say this thing happened, because of the, you know, responsibility that you bear as an individual in the community in URR. So thank you so much for the work that you do, and then, you know, sending you some light as well, because it's not easy to go and report on issues as such. But thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you, Jan. Of course, obviously, there are certain times that we experience some of these challenges when during a period of reporting some of this news, you know, even yesterday, because when I went there, the first thing I have to do is to identify myself. That was then the police allow me to go ahead and further do my investigation. So some of those challenges we expected along the line whilst we are doing our job. All the way, we also thank you very much for you. You're doing a brilliant job over there. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And that is why we have regional correspondents as well, just to make sure we get information as they happen, you know, which our regional correspondents are doing. But yeah, so I don't think we can comment further on this. We'll just allow the police to do their job, and then I'm sure Alaji A.F. Jallow will inform us accordingly. So we're talking about food self-sufficiency, rice production.
Yeah, I know, coming from that right.
It's
like I was saying, I think from what we are hearing and seeing with the engagement of government with different partners, we see that they recognize the importance and significance of especially our main staple food, which is rice.
Right.
And Gambia is endowed with a lot of fresh water, and we have a lot of land as well that is underutilized. So that the fact that they engage with the ADB and other partners in order to increase rice production is something that is commendable. I know before we used to have projects like the Jahali Pachar and all this, but they were not sufficient enough to cut down, because the burden of importation of rice is heavily impacting on the economy, because you would require a lot of dollars in order to buy. So therefore it's creating what they call the imbalance, trade imbalance or deficit. And that if we can correct that, then it means we can save substantial amounts of money that we can invest into other areas. So I hope, you know, they continue in this work of trying to ensure that we produce sufficient for what we need, so we grow all that is required.
Yeah,
for
it's
our
even
consumption.
beyond rice, vegetables. You know, we import almost everything as a country. You know, which is really
Animals.
Yeah, everything.
Sheep.
You
Yeah.
know, when it's Tobaski, we import all the ships. You know.
Yeah.
A lot of things. I
We
mean,
had a
if you-
project for that as well. I
Yeah.
saw a lot of
Yeah,
millions
they
inside.
actually came. So I don't know how far. And they talked about the fact that next Tobaski is going to be a different case. So when those things happen, you can just put a restriction on the importation of the
You protect
animal.
your market,
you know,
you mean.
protect your
Yeah,
market,
yeah.
put restrictions, increase tax if you need to. Other countries do it. You know, so that's
For
just
the,
it.
for the
For the
importation
interest,
of those.
yes, for
you
the
have to
interest of your
protect
people.
Your industries,
Exactly.
yes, like poultry and all these things.
Yeah.
If we are growing
At some
sufficient
point,
amount,
yeah.
yes, Senegal does it, many
Yeah.
other countries.
Yeah.
We
as long
can.
as-
For rice, we have the water, we have the land. So I think it shouldn't be very difficult. It's just a matter of maybe putting extra efforts. I mean, for us to be able to produce our own rice.
You have to invest because agriculture is capital intensive because you need it. It's
capital
not like before and you have a hoe and somebody digging just about
Mechanized
1 acre
farming.
for. So it's just one day you have the machinery and everything, you know, smart farming, mechanized farming to bring these things and then work on it. And it's doable. It's challenging, but it's not beyond, you know, countries are doing it. So we should be able to do it.
Well, and it's going to be the easiest way to fight hunger, and at the same time, you know, I think when we produce our own rice, there are things that they'll be happening. They won't happen again.
Yeah.
I mean, the importation, like you said, will cut down, the importation of rice in the country.
Right.
You know, and the like. But we have the likes of Sapo, Jahali Pachar.
Right.
We should be able to do it,
Many
Mr.
more areas that are still underutilized.
Yeah,
We can
yeah,
definitely
yeah, yeah.
explore to expand it.
Yeah,
the
but then you
private
can
sector.
also, the saltwater intrusion is also, you know, a very major problem, because when I travel with Action Aid of country, I've seen a lot of communities where, you know, they grow rice and then at some point then the saltwater intrusion comes in and that's the end of it. So it's beyond just growing it itself. There are other underlying issues that needs to be solved. Irrigation, you know, saltwater intrusion. So all of that.
Yeah, that's the control mechanism.
Yes.
I think they need to focus on that. I mean, to control these things. I think it can be controlled. I mean, you know, there are things that should be put in place.
Yeah, like
to be
Mr.
able to
Kass
control
said,
that.
it's capital intensive. You know,
Indeed.
it is capital intensive.
But we
and-
have hydro engineers,
Yes.
you know, people who know about these things, irrigation engineers and all these things. And there are lots of Gambians around the world that you can mobilize in order to really impact. But
Yeah.
you have to really invest in them.
Yeah.
You have to believe in them.
Yeah.
They also have to make sure that they do what is required,
Yeah.
not just taking funds for the sake of it and not
Yeah.
deliver.
Yeah.
That will definitely.
Yeah, that is why I am happy about the steps that the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology is taking. Now they're focusing more of sending Gambians out to study things like fisheries, aquaculture, you know, some of those areas where does not really exist in the Gambia. Like you said, the land, the water, everything is available, but then the technical know-how does not exist from our own people. So I like that the step that they're
True,
taking.
because if land is just there and not utilized, it just becomes a potential.
Exactly.
And potential without exploitation doesn't transform into anything.
It never
So
does.
in order for really, for it to matter, we have to put practice and theory together.
I agree.
And then realize, you know, the end product.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ka, for joining us. It's always good to have you here. Have a great weekend, because we are not coming back here again, Ibrahim.
Till Monday.
And then I'll have to send a camera to his house, Mr. Ka, just to check if he's staying from Friday, like he said, from Friday to Sunday, he's going to be indoors.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm always
investigate.
indoors.
Okay.
I'll investigate that.
Just ask the children.
Yes, we'll go for a short break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about a very, very interesting topic, so don't go anywhere.
The art of juggling is a true spectacle of agility, coordination, and speed. A symbol of progression, precision, and mastery. "5G speed is like having the juggler in your pocket. With lightning-fast download and upload speeds, you'll easily be able to juggle even the busiest workdays. Whether you're a busy entrepreneur, a creative, or just someone who wants to stay connected. Juggle your tasks with ease with QCell 5G speed. The future is here. It's fast, reliable, and efficient. First brought to you by QCell. We innovate, others follow.
The future is now with QCell's 5G network. Experience speeds like never before with our new 5G Rocket Fixed Internet plan. Get speeds from 10 Mbps to 100 Mbps. Your 5G-enabled devices. Walk into QCell headquarters to get one of our 5G routers and experience the true feeling of 5G. Only with QCell. QCell brings you the future. Tech, innovation, incredible speed. The future is now. For more information, call our customer care on 111. QCell, Sunyapus. We innovate, others follow. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back from that break. If you're just tuning in, you're watching QTV this morning. And now, Ibrahima, we're about to discuss the Gambia launching the capital markets. And when that event happened, the interactions on social media and what people had to say kind of showed me that there's a lack of understanding in relation to what you know, a capital market is all about. So that is why we're joined by a market development specialist, Olimide Lala, to, you know, educate people about, you know, some of the benefits that this is going to bring and all of that. Because we are at a time in the Gambia where every little thing is politicized, and it's important that people understand the direction that, you know, we are trying to take, the central bank is trying to take.
It's good you mentioned that, Jen, about,
Yeah.
I mean, for us to have someone who is going to take us through what the capital market is. Most people don't understand, you know, where it's coming from, you know, and this is a chain that links certain things, and, you know, that, I mean, comes to your country. So it's important for our guest to help us go through this. You are welcome, sir.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me over.
Please tell us your name. I mean,
Olimide Lala.
Oh,
my name is Olumide
Oh,
Lala.
you pronounced it.
I did.
Yes, you did actually. You did.
I did.
Not too often do people do. I am the executive director of the company called Climate Transition Limited. I run the Climate Finance Solutions. But I've spent the last 20 odd years in the capital markets, either in the UK or more recently in Nigeria. So, you know, my understanding of the capital markets across Africa is an interesting one. Especially as we connect the capital markets to the real economy, but also what is actually impacting the real economy today, which is obviously, you know, we talk about sustainability, we talk about climate change, the risks associated with that. But before we get into that, it's probably good to even talk about why we need a capital market.
Yeah, that is where we're heading to.
And what benefits that actually brings to
the Gambia.
Well, any nation, but more importantly, the Gambia. Especially tapping into one such as yours. I mean, I was listening to the last session that you were having, and you finished with talking about food security, but more importantly, the natural assets that you have to support the food security, but some of the challenges that you have in exploiting those opportunities. And so talking about the capital market in isolation, the capital market by definition is a platform for capital formation. One of the challenges that you also made reference to, I mean, the gentleman that was here before, and you forgive me, I'm trying to remember his name.
Mr. Carr.
Mr. Carr, exactly. Made reference to the fact that, you know, it's expensive doing this. So access to finance is an interesting one. Recently, over the weekend into Monday, the president of the AFDB was here. And I don't know if you know his background, but he used to be, before he became the president of the AFDB, he used to be the Minister for Agriculture in Nigeria. And one of his biggest drive is actually getting Africa to feed itself. And so how do you do that? You do that by mobilizing resources, especially capital. And capital mobilization, as I said, is literally one of the main objectives of the capital markets. However, capital mobilization itself, investors will only go to a place where you can de-risk opportunities. So another objective, or another role, if you will, that the capital market plays is one of regulations. and safety. So if you look to what was done on Friday, which incidentally is not just a significant milestone in the history of the Gambia, and I think years to come, people will look back at this occasion and those people driving this and begin to realize what the capital market has done. So if I break it into the three functions that were actually launched on that day by the central bank.
Right.
The first one obviously was the regulator, which is Securities and Exchange Commission. And their main duty is obviously to regulate the market, regulate all market participants, and ensure that all the market activities are done in an organized and safe way to protect the investor primarily. Yeah, that's number one. Secondly, you've got the market itself. And the way to describe a market, even though it's the stock exchange, and the exchange or the securities exchange, and securities we talk about in terms of shares and debt and all that kind of stuff. But basically, simply, the market itself is a place where you come to do business. The market is no different to your typical market where you have the buyers and the sellers, and they come to sell their wares, be it the plantains or bananas or whatever, just breaking it down for the common man to understand. But in this case, what we're actually doing, we're doing two things. We're giving an opportunity for companies to raise capital for further development and expansion, in a place whereby, because it's regulated, then the investors will come. Those who have excess money within the system will come. And that could apply to anyone, not just the rich man in the mansion.
Yeah, because I was going to come to that, because in Gambia here, you know, since the coming of the new dispensation in 2016, we've seen a lot of young people, you know, using that entrepreneurship vibe to make money. Most young people are now trying to be entrepreneurs because they understand that sitting at the office is not for everybody. So we have a lot of young businesses, a lot of SMEs in existence. You know, how is this going to benefit young entrepreneurs or persons with just ideas?
So in addressing that, the capital market is not for everyone. At the onset. There's certain requirements that a company has to grow to a certain point. Don't forget, as I said, you're trying to get both domestic and external investors involved. So typically you would have some of the rules that you have with the exchange, for instance, for listing, will be you have to have run a company for about 3 years and more. You will have to have financial that you need to say. You'll have a structure, a governance structure. You know, it's a well-run company. I mean, some of the banks here, the telco companies, some of the other companies that are running, even within the trading side, supermarkets, and that have been going on for years, would qualify and would be able to raise funds either for expansion or just to release some capital. One of the main benefits, actually, I often say to people about listing a company on the capital markets, on the exchange, is longevity. 3 things. You cannot grow beyond your own self. By bringing other people into it, one, you bring organization, you bring structure, but more importantly, you bring innovation. And so the sustainability of that company is actually guaranteed.
Yeah, so you talked about how the stock market at the start is not for everybody.
Yes.
You know, like you said, the regulations are in place that you have to have 3 years, you know, experience in it and have the needed capital. But as of now, in the beginning, are you just targeting state-owned institutions?
No, not at all. Private institutions. Because all the banks are obviously not state-owned. The telcos are not state-owned. And when I say it's not for everybody, let me clarify that.
Yes, please.
It's important that I clarify that.
Yes.
So when I say it's not for everybody, it is not for every, because I was addressing the point of the entrepreneurs.
Yes.
However, all of us, down to the last person, even to buy for your own children, you can buy shares in a company as a form of investment. Now, one of the things that we will develop in the Gambia over the years will be, and I don't know if I don't think you have a private pension scheme today. It's probably all run by the government.
Yeah,
but you will have that because you have the private sector who will raise funding to invest, obviously, in various companies on the market. So what the capital market will do in time, it will bring about innovation and actually capital development and industrialization to this country. Some of the things that you were talking about in terms of building companies to address agriculture as agribusiness, I looked at the river here, utilizing the river for transportation, some of the roads infrastructure you want to build, your health sector, your education sector, all of this will benefit from actually being the advent of the capital market. The third angle of the capital market that I wanted to make reference to was the custody. So the custodian's job is to actually ensure the safe security of the shares that are being sold to individuals. So these are the guys who will hold on to the shares that we have. So it's all in a safe place.
Okay, all right. I would like to know, I mean, what are the components of the capital market, I mean, itself?
So the components of the capital market from the regulatory side will be your regulator, which is the apex regulator, as I said, the Securities and Exchange Commission. You will have the exchange itself, which would be regulated by the Securities Exchange, but would also regulate the traders, the primary dealers and the stockbrokers who would trade on its floor. By default, they would also be registered and licensed by the Securities and Exchange Commission. The custody, on the other hand, which is the third arm, will be the ones that would actually hold your securities in trust for you whenever it is you want to sell them or buy them. Yeah. So those are the three arms. However, further down the scale, you've got the market participants. So you got your fund managers, you got your stockbrokers, you got various intermediaries, your commercial, your investment bankers, your lawyers will be a part of it. So it touches every cross-sectional of the entire economy. So that's the capital market itself. The question then is, what does it do for the economy? Now, what you made reference to earlier was connecting to finance.
Right.
So if you can raise finance on the capital market, or raise capital on the capital markets, then you have more money to invest in all the sectors that you talked about: agriculture, tourism, fishery, tourism. You made reference to something earlier which touched my mind the first time I came here. I cannot believe how vibrant your tourism industry is.
Right.
And when I think about those who support the tourism industry, you talked about poultry earlier on. A great percentage of your food is imported. At that
almost
time.
Everything.
And I'm thinking, you've got the arable land. You should be one of the most vibrant agribusiness in Africa.
Right.
Yeah, because you've got a ready market. Transportation is one. I mean, your rivers, for instance, you should be able to move in goods from the hinterlands all the way across. Yeah, not necessarily building. Now, in terms of sustainability and carbon emission, which is the big thing today when it comes to climate change. Think about the carbon footprint of every single piece of food that lands in this place. So literally, you could be carbon neutral by just simply putting strategies in place for import substitution. So when you talk about what government can do, obviously they're about policy. They need to start thinking about policies, not necessarily to, as you said, to levy. That's one arm, but also to provide development finance, either through the capital markets or even through partnerships with the AFDB and other functions to support the development of this industry.
So based on the components you talked about, it seems the risks are very limited for investors. Is it safe to say that?
The risk is limited. Put it this way, there is no risk-free
zone, obviously, in these instances. I agree with that.
I wouldn't want to come back and say to you, even what we call the safest investment in the world, which is lending to your government, is not safe. Because your government can't go backwards. I mean, it has happened in the world. We've seen Greece and Iceland, when you talk about 2008 and the like. So there is nothing called risk-free. However, the regulatory process and the regulatory environment, which the regulators put in place, definitely is a lot safer to invest in the capital markets than elsewhere. So I would rather put my money in the capital markets.
Okay.
Just to, before you comment,
sure.
What's the difference between the money market and the capital market?
So basically, in simple terms, the money market is short-term investment, and the capital market avails you of long-term capital. And you cannot, money markets are more expensive. You cannot raise money, short-term money, 3 months to 1 year, to build bridges or to invest in energy. I mean, that's another space, by the way. Your energy, diesel. I mean, we're trying to, I'm not saying kill the diesel market, but what I'm saying is, obviously, in terms of the carbon emission, substituting that with solar energy, renewables is clearly a massive opportunity for the Gambia. So you need long-term capital. the capital market avails you the opportunity to raise long-term capital at a cheaper rate than you would the money market, which is more short-term.
Yeah, you know, looking at your background, you have a, you know, very diverse background, taking a look at climate change related issues, and then other countries, African countries, are now selling carbon credits.
Yes.
So do you think there's a chance for Gambia to also sell carbon credits? Our mangroves are looking good, but obviously, you know, putting into consideration that the process is also not as easy as people think.
Baby steps. You know, let's be honest with ourselves.
Yes.
You know, there's a massive capacity gap across Africa, anyways.
Yes.
Let alone the Gambia.
Yeah.
So before we even start talking about carbon credits, and because the last thing you want, is to set something up that you don't understand and people come along and exploit you.
Big time.
Yeah. So let's work with the level of knowledge that we need to
On
build the
ground.
fundamentals.
Yeah.
And then when the time comes, we cross that bridge.
But we need to start somewhere.
Yes. So so here's the interesting thing, and I'm glad you said that. The beauty of where Gambia sits today is that you don't have to retrofit and you don't have legacy systems.
Yeah.
So you can literally build with the right foundation. I was speaking to the central bank the other day and I said one of the interesting things is you would definitely raise debt for capital infrastructure by the government. It's probably interesting to start with looking at what it takes to raise a green bond, for instance, to actually finance green assets. So you're right. We don't have to wait, but that knowledge is something that we need to get first before we start. There's more that we can talk about. Green finance, talk about green bonds, social bonds, sustainability bonds, which apply especially as the climate our issues is not more mitigation but adaptation. So we need to address those points first. But you're right, there's a conversation that needs to be had. We will look to do capacity building across the entire, build the media, the universities, the government.
It's important.
But it's a long-term strategy, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, at the end of the day, before we even head there, we should take a look at how, you know, we get to attract even climate finance. You know, that's even a problem capacity-wise, you know, to understand how to tap into fundings that are always there.
Precisely.
But climate activists always talk about how difficult it is to even, you know, tap into these things.
It is, but probably not so. I think, I mean, about 3 weeks ago, I worked with I supported the African Development Bank in launching what we called the African Financial Alliance on Climate Change, which is an Africa-wide platform for actually addressing some of the challenges, but taking advantage of the opportunities within climate finance. And even though we say it's difficult, one of the things that we don't look at, we talk about attracting money, but we don't talk about the money that is actually in the country. For instance, if you look at the Gambia, if you provide a platform for even the diaspora to bring their money in a structured manner, not the way it's done today for consumption, but in a structured manner, if we could raise a diaspora bond, for instance, on the capital market, and actually use that for infrastructure development, they would have a share ownership in the future of the country, rather than just sit on the outside. Now, what that does, as development happens, you were saying something earlier about attracting the Gambians. That's where the knowledge comes. So you got Gambians in the US, in the UK, all over the place. They will come back. This is exactly what happened in Nigeria. When the economy starts to grow, the first group of people that will come back home are the diasporas. They will not only come with the knowledge and money, they will also come with the expertise, which then empowers those on the ground. So what you then begin to see, so if you look at the capital market in isolation, you miss the point. Because once the capital market is leveraged to build the economy and develop the economy, then you begin to see all this innovation actually being exploited. Capital follows it because they realize, investors now realize that not only are the opportunities there, but the capacity to exploit it is there. I mean, we sit in a TV company today, which obviously a few years ago wasn't here. So it's all part, and by the way, we'll probably be looking to this company as well. You talked about government. We'll be looking to this company to list on the market as well.
Oh, okay. But anyway, I think you talked about the risk already. You know, but
let's focus on the opportunity.
Yeah, okay. He doesn't want us, but then whatever the case, the risks are always there, and people need to be told. For example, collaterals declining in terms of their value, all of those things.
Precisely, and I think that's why obviously you need experts on ground to empower. And you see, the more data you have, and the more analysis that is done, and the more regulations meet data, then it's easier to put in place the right risk management framework.
Exactly.
And by doing so, you de-risk whatever projects. It's all about, as we always say, in God we trust. Everybody else brings data. Once the data is there, it's easy to do the analysis that is required.
Yeah, so I'm afraid that is all we have time for. Any other thing you want to put across?
Not at all, except to thank you for having me. It's been a beautiful, I mean, I can talk about this forever, as you can tell. But look, time is not our friend. But, you know, be assured that the government, especially the central bank, is doing all that it takes to ensure that the capital market is a success, but more importantly, to bring the value to the Gambia in terms of industrialization, in terms of food security that we're trying to
talking
do.
about.
Yes.
Is this your first time in Gambia, no?
It's my second time, but I feel like I
so
live
how
here
do you
already.
feel? I feel like you're so comfortable.
The people are warm. It's a beautiful country. I love the beach. What else is there to ask for?
Yeah, what else?
And that's coming from a Nigerian, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Ibrahim. That is all we have time for.
Till Monday.
So, till Monday, have a nice weekend. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day.